on November the 21st in the year of our Lord 2025. And as usual, I got a lot of great information for you. Let me just go ahead and click over here at Murtech on Rumble. Pull up my Rumble page. This is the video we're talking about tonight, episode 1753. It says upcoming, but as you know, you are actually watching it. Let me go ahead and get into that. Close out the live chat here and slide down and click the show more button to expand out the description box. We have information from ACLJ Sekulow, Black Conservative Perspective, Devory Darkins, and Vince Dow. But before we jump into that, let's give a shout out here to Grammy Jeans. Anyway, Grammy Jeans just started following my channel. Don Nag just started following my channel. Cindy with 2 E's, okay, just started following my channel. Athena 4 just started following my channel. I Love Moose just started following my channel. Nightingale 0047 just started following my channel, and JoJo 1961 just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. Apologize if I mispronounced your handle there, but I do appreciate you following me. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, Ms. Flintstone 17 reposted my daily news wrap-up from last night, and Deb Brandt gave me a comment on my daily news wrap-up. Deb Brandt, incidentally, is from Australia. Foxy Grandma commented on my episode 1752, and Debbie BS commented on my extra 537A, 537B, and 537C. So thank you very much, folks, for your comments. I enjoy reading your input, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. Boom. There we go. Okay, well, let's get into this. American Center for Law and Justice, Sekulow, major deal to stop Russia-Ukraine war. Okay, well, we've heard that before. I wonder what this deal happens to be about. Let's just take a listen and see. If this video will start.
Today we are talking about, you never know what kind of news you're going to wake up to. One of a surprising one that came out last night was the United States has a peace proposal ready for Ukraine and Russia. It is a multi-point. It goes to a nearly 30-point, 28-point plan for the end to the war in Ukraine. It is a fascinating piece. I'm going to break down for you. I want to know where you stand currently in this situation. We know it has been a point of contention for President Trump as he is not able to really make a whole lot of headway in this war, something he thought he could end quickly. Obviously, dealing with Vladimir Putin is a little bit different than expected. But what we've been told is that this plan has been talked to, but to the Ukrainians and to the Russians, and we don't know where they are necessarily in their point, but at least we know an envoy is on the way there to discuss this option that would have an immediate ceasefire monitored by the U.S. We would have the Donbass region. Ukraine would secede that region, which is interesting. They would actually give it over to Russia. However, they don't necessarily have to recognize it as permanent. The main thing that's very interesting, because you may go, well, that feels like a big loss for Russia, as Russia has said no land. One of the things they get in this is financial compensation to Ukraine of upwards of $100 billion from both a collective U.S. and EU fund for the lost territory and for reconstruction. So you're talking about essentially getting paid back for this land and for the damage caused in war. One of the other parts of the plan actually has the U.S.-Russia investment fund of $50 billion for Ukraine's reconstruction, co-managed by oligarchs. That is, again, another sort of fascinating move here. President Trump and his team always thinking a bit, three-dimensionally, four-dimensionally, if you will, on how you could get peace in this region. There's also a lot of different plans we'll go through, including no NATO expansion for the next 20 years, including Georgia and Moldova. There's so many different things, prisoner of war exchange, a sort of a DMZ area that would be built, and a roadmap for normalized U.S.-Russia trade, something that a lot of us really would hope could happen in the near future, that you would actually have Russia kind of get back on board with the world, which would be nice. For anyone who understands the global economy and how that all works, of course, we are, you got to be supportive and look at what's going on in Ukraine, realize they've been under attack for many years now, but it doesn't mean that there is not business to be had in Russia, and there has been for decades now, since essentially the end of the Cold War.
8 wars. I've settled 8 wars. I have 1 to go. You know what that one is. I thought that was going to be my easy one because I have a good relationship with President Putin, but I'm a little disappointed in President Putin right now. He knows that. I thought that was going to be the easy one.
This has been a sticking point for President Trump, as he's clearly been frustrated with the lack of movement. This is a very unique plan. I've actually just read through all of it and was talking to our team. I think this is one of the smarter plans I've seen. Again, thinking a bit different. It's not just like this guarantee who's the winner, who's the loser here. Both of them kind of come back with something, including over $150 billion to Ukraine. So understand that that is a no small amount for not only rebuilding, but for also seceding some of their land. The control of the Donbass region, which we know has been something that I'm very curious what we'll hear a response at from Zelensky, because, of course, giving up land has not been something they have wanted to do, understandably. But what would that look like? There would also be Ukraine would adopt a permanent neutral status, foregoing NATO membership indefinitely. No NATO expansion, like I said, eastward for 20 years. There's a ton of other little things in here. It's not little, but things that maybe are of less significance to our audience. One that is actually fascinating. If you've been on the side of going, well, I've heard about Christian persecution in Ukraine and that they have issues with the Christian churches there and that they've been able to operate. One of the talking points is autonomy for the Russian Orthodox Church and their properties in Ukraine. So if you've had that sticking point where you've been unsure of whose side you're on, if you will, in Russia and Ukraine, this would probably eliminate that from being something that you would have a concern about, which would, again, be good for the church. And there was also a few other different things in here. I'm sure a lot of these points will be negotiated out.
I wanted to talk about what you just played from Trump. It may be relatable. There was an old doctor in England, Doc McIntosh, and he was different medical procedures, especially birthing babies. He made the statement, sometimes the easy ones are the hard ones, and sometimes the hard ones are the easy ones. And that's exactly what maybe Trump thought, that the Israeli conflict would be harder and the Russian conflict would be easier. But, sometimes the hard ones turn out to be the easy ones, and the easy ones turn out to be the hard ones. Thank you, Dr. McIntosh, and thank you for all y'all are doing.
I'm looking at this new plan, and I'm actually kind of excited to hear about what Zelensky may do with this. Maybe there's some of the points they want to negotiate out, but it's very interesting. And again, provides a lot of support for Ukraine, gives Russia a little bit of what they want. And, maybe there's that middle spot where we can close, President Trump can come in and cause some end to this global conflict. Because look, we used to have an office. We had the ACLJ in Russia fighting for religious freedom in Russia. It was an amazing operation. The team there was great. Of course, we had to cease operations. You're not allowed to do business with Russia or Russia. We can't get money there to support that. Understandably, it's war, and it's a war that certainly America has more picked one side than the other. And look, I get that, but we've essentially divested completely. With that, I would love to see at some point in my children's lifetime, at least, for Russia to be able to reopen. One, it's a beautiful country, beautiful people who have amazing history, a somewhat dark history, but a history nonetheless that I think we need to make sure we remember and we're able to see. I think a lot of these places, if you don't get to see them, you kind of forget they exist, and that's unfortunate over time. But I would hope over time we can get back to there.
I think that Putin is dogmatic in wanting to hold on to Ukraine because I think he made a speech before or after the invasion and claiming that his purpose was to reunite Ukraine with Russia because it was considered their foundation, their homeland, or their cradle for the whole Russian thing.
He did that big pomp and circumstance, event we all remember. Yeah, go ahead, though.
Yeah, and I believe that they took advantage of that fact when Biden was in office due to the fact of, like you said, his inability to really stand up to Putin, and he thought that he would be able to put one over on him, which he did.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that we were not able to meet or to have a conversation or a phone call with Russia for multiple years in the middle of wartime was absurd. That's not the way we need to be able to run things in America. Vladimir Putin, I'm not saying he's a good guy. Certainly not. Certainly has been in some kind of dictatorship control of Russia now for many years. However, when you actually get to meet with these people, maybe things can get done. If we want global peace, which I know, obviously most of us do, I would hope you do. You have to be able to meet. Doesn't mean to be their best friend. Rick Riddell's come on here and said you can be a diplomat and not be their friend. Just because you're having a conversation with them across from the table actually can be stronger if you're not their friend.
Alrighty, there you have it, folks. Let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. The Sekulow recap. I'm following the channel. I've given them a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and scroll down and see what Black Conservative Perspective has to say. Socialist civil war erupts as supporters turn on AOC and Zohran for betraying them to save Democrats. Let's see what that's all about. Sounds interesting to me. Ooh. Okay, I'm sorry. The page didn't. There we go.
Months later.
Here we go.
It's time for a city to turn a new page, because this mayor sold us out. I'm Chiose.
I'm Zohran Mamdani.
And I represent New York City Council District 36.
Several months later.
Let me talk about Hakeem Jeffries for a moment, who now may face a challenge from Chiose, who is a member of the DSA. You said that there are local issues that Mr. Osei should be focused on, maybe should remain a councilman. Are you saying he should not run against Hakeem Jeffries?
No, I'm saying that I think the focus should be right here on New York City. I respect the work that Councilmember Osei has done in the council.
But what does that mean? Should he not run?
I think that right now is not the time to be engaging in that kind of a primary.
I do not wish progressives any luck in elections. I'm terrified for the reign of Zohran Mamdani here in New York. It has emboldened people like AOC. The most interesting thing is watching her triangulate on whether or not one of her fellow progressives should primary Hakeem Jeffries, because now she has to be a little bit more of a mainstream Democrat if she wants to run for president in 2028. That means she cannot turf Democrat leadership, especially if the guy who's going to primary him will probably lose and Hakeem Jeffries will stay exactly where she is. I don't think that there is a way to reprogram a progressive. I think, unfortunately, that it is an orthodoxy and a mental virus that takes over any rational component of a person's executive function. Therefore, she cannot be the head of the executive branch.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Get your popcorn ready, because we got to talk about the socialist civil war that is happening over Hakeem Jeffries' congressional seat, as you have Chiose, a Black gay NYC council member. He has now filed for potential challenge to Hakeem Jeffries for Congress.
NYC DSA members, this can only be done and only be tried in partnership with you. And we must try. The national leader of the Democratic Party could be anywhere in America. And by some random chance, it's a man whose millions from AIPAC become billions for bombs. And he's right here in Brooklyn. I believe we have an obligation of circumstance. It could be by anyone, anywhere, but it's us here. Over $150,000 and 1,000 volunteers are pre-pledged. This would grow capacity, not strain it. And this will grow Black socialism and strengthen the movement for the sake of our neighborhoods and the millions overseas who we will never meet. I'm asking you to vote yes. We have to try.
Yesterday, top Democrat Hakeem Jeffries got a primary challenger in popular city council member Chiose. This is big, with potential repercussions for the orientation of the entire Democratic Party. Not to mention, also impacts moving Zohran's agenda forward in 2026. And a major test that everyone is looking at right now is, will the New York City DSA Zohran's foundational endorsement back Chi? I've been organizing in these spaces for years. Here's me congratulating Zohran on getting his endorsement from New York City DSA in 2024. Let me give you more of an insider perspective of what's going on. Jeffries has been the minority speaker replacing Pelosi in 2023. With a decade of time in Congress, he has middling favorability nationally, but is well-liked within his own district. Chi is a fresh city council member elected in 2022 and has outsized popularity due to his effective use of short-form videos. His key piece of legislation is the FAIR Act, major renter-friendly legislation that prevents landlords from unfairly charging brokers' fees. Chi is hoping to primary Jeffries in New York Congressional District 8, which Zohran won in the primary with 55% of the vote to Cuomo's 44% of the vote. But first, Chi is hoping to win New York City DSA's endorsement, which is run by members, rank and file members. One member, one vote, real democracy.
Now, we talked about this a couple days ago and how this is a big deal for a couple reasons. One is because I think that this guy has a real chance of winning. The reason why I say this is because he's a far-left socialist in bed with Zohran Mamdani and AOC, or put it this way, he was in bed with them. I mean, that's what we have to talk about here in this video because there's some backstabbing going on here. We're going to talk about it. But anyways, yeah, all you need to know is that this guy is a far-left socialist, a lunatic made from the same cloth as all the far-left lunatics, mainly considering how in the streets they are civil rights activists, right? They hate white supremacy, but in the sheets, they love white supremacy, right? They love the great white pipe, right? So again, we've seen this play out time and time and time again, okay? So again, this guy is running against Hakeem Jeffries. However, Zohran Mamdani and AOC, they're saying, hold on now, slow your roll. They are not getting behind Chiosei and his bid to unseat Representative Hakeem Jeffries, despite the fact that this dude, Chiosei, campaigned alongside Zohran Mamdani and AOC to help Zohran win the New York City election.
Zohran? Is this your train?
Yeah, let's go.
This city is the world's greatest experiment in human cooperation.
And there are those who want to tear it down and sell it out. Trump from the outside, affordability crisis from the inside.
How many more people could thrive with more affordable housing, world-class transit, and universal childcare?
Absolutely, man. They don't want people to believe they can ask for more, so we have to demand more.
Do you know Andrew Cuomo cut Medicaid?
Yeah, and he stole money from the MTA to subsidize upstate ski resorts.
Jesus Christ. I love this city. I just want it to be better.
With all New York has going for it, I just can't help but ask, why is shit not working? It's time to make New York work for everyone.
You know it.
Yes.
You're running for office.
Yeah, I'm running for mayor.
I'm running with you, brother. In this political moment, we need someone with the energy to stand up to Donald Trump, with an inspirational vision of the most our city can be. And that's why I'm endorsing Zohran Mamdani for mayor.
You can't hand New York City over to a dangerous grifter like Andrew Cuomo. Election day is on June 24th, and early voting starts on June 14th.
So, what'd you get?
Spicy chicken sandwich. They didn't have nothing.
Neither party's official platform, in my opinion, is good on Palestine. I don't think either party right now is doing justice to Palestinians. That doesn't mean that they're the same. I think that a Donald Trump presidency would be absolutely catastrophic. I mean, he's coming out here saying finish the job of a genocide.
There's a lot of people with our politics that are having a hard time getting there in terms of supporting Kamala Harris.
I think about the women that are bleeding out in ER rooms because they live in red states. I think about trans kids that are living in places where their entire families are trying to figure out if they need to pack up their entire lives and move somewhere else. We have to hold all of those things at once. And so to me, the conclusion that I've come to is having more people suffer to put on top of the already horrific suffering that's going on in Gaza is not something that I think I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, so some of you guys may be confused about what's going on here, right? Why is Zohran and AOC refusing to support their fellow comrade? Now, I'm going to talk about it, but first we got to get into the socialist meltdown because, as you guys know, the socialists are upset with Zohran and AOC for refusing to support Chiosei primarying Hakeem Jeffries. Take a look.
See, and this right here is why I did not fuck with her and Bernie Sanders' Fight the Oligarchy tour that happened recently when everybody else was fawning all over it. Because it's very easy to say, fight the oligarchy, stand up to the establishment, when it's vague and faceless and nameless. But then when somebody takes your advice and says, you know, I'm going to primary the guy who is completely funded and controlled by Wall Street and AIPAC, you go, oh, did I say fight the oligarchy? I didn't mean ours. Similar to what Bernie said when he was asked about Chuck Schumer's disastrous handling of the government shutdown. He's like, well, I'm not going to call for him to step down, but make sure you stand up to the establishment. Okay, so you guys want to tell people to stand up to the establishment, but then when they do in your own party, you're like, what? You didn't mean like that. Which is particularly galling because we all know that AOC has her seat because she challenged an incumbent in leadership leadership. And remember, this is the same AOC that tried to gaslight all of us and tell us that Joe Biden was the best person to run for re-election, that he was fine. This is just the newest example of why I don't trust her. This shit was the nail in the coffin for trust. She and Bernie are hypocrites, but I already dealt with Bernie in the other video. She is a hypocrite because not only, as I said, did she get her seat in the first place by challenging an incumbent, but what I also need everybody to understand is that it's in moments like this that you realize how unserious they are about change.
Reported that council member Chi Osei, who I just found out earlier this year that he's actually Combat Jack's son. I didn't know that. I should have known off the last name. But anyways, it has been reported that he has filed the necessary paperwork or filings to primary Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Now, if you know Chi Osei, he's very active on social media. A lot of people like him. He campaigned heavy for Zohran Mamdani. And I think he identifies as a democratic socialist as well. Very progressive. The whole country has been watching minority leader of the House, Hakeem Jeffries, in the midst of this new Trump administration era. And I think it's pretty fair to say that not only Democrats, but Americans have been highly disappointed with the performance and behavior of Congressman Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, but we talking about Hakeem right now. Like everybody or a lot of people have been advocating for him to be primary. That this is not a new concept or idea. But when a young, progressive, democratic socialist who represents a constituency in New York City, who showed that Zohran Mamdani is exciting and he won, he supported him, whatever, he aligns with that perspective. So you would think that this makes sense. Taking the energy from Zohran Mamdani winning the mayoral electorate in New York and extending from a council member who is of that same belief system to taking it to U.S. Congress, you would think that would make some sort of sense. But the Democrats in New York, from Zohran himself to AOC, are saying that this isn't the time. And they're not saying like, oh, we don't think, Councilmember Chi Osei is ready. Like, I'd accept that. To say like, hey, we need you in the city, like, hold back a little while. They're saying Congressman Hakeem Jeffries doesn't need to be primaried at all. What?
Yeah, it's no surprise that AOC has come out to say that Chi Osei should not run against incumbent Hakeem Jeffries for that congressional seat. We live in a two-party system that fights to the death in order to survive. And sometimes that means absorbing really progressive politicians like AOC and molding them into the type of politicians that we all were trying to escape from in the first place. It's no surprise that she said that, but it is like so ironic and it's a slap in the face because when she, won against incumbent Joe Crowley, what she just said to Chi Osei is what everyone was telling her. And I was on the Hill when she won and started, and it wasn't a very warm welcome. People were not happy with her. People felt like she had wasted political power because Joe Crowley held a lot of power in the House. People felt like she had taken that seat, that she should have waited her turn, that it wasn't the right time. So for her to then turn around and do that with Chi Osei it's extremely disappointing, but it is not surprising. This is why I say you guys need to stop idolizing politicians.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? The far left, they're pissed off by this. They feel betrayed, hoodwinked, run amok, led astray due to the fact that Zohran and AOC have basically decided that, you know what, it's not a good idea to proceed with a full-blown coup of the Democrat Party. We need to chill, right? We need to chill for a little bit. And they're not endorsing one of their comrades to take on Hakeem Jeffries. Now, Chi Osei needs the support of the DSA, right? The Democratic Socialists of America, the same organization that AOC and Zohran, they're in bed with. He's going to need their support. And Zohran is basically the leader right now. So he's essentially going to be fighting Zohran, his comrade, to get the support of the Democrat Socialists of America to take down Hakeem Jeffries. And again, I'm going to explain why Zohran and AOC aren't on board with a full-blown coup yet. So let's read this. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is right. Far-left city councilman Chi Osei's bid to unseat House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries is not, quote, a good idea. Per post sources, the privileged Brooklyn radical launched his challenge against the explicit objections of Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, who focused on pursuing his agenda, not a democratic civil war. Osei is an opportunistic twit who quit the local Democratic Socialist of America chapter years ago, saying he was not, quote, aligned with the organization itself, but recently rejoined after Mamdani showed what a force the DSA can be. Of course, he presents that move as selfless, writing in the radical journal Jacobin that he did it, quote, because the movement surge that carried Zohran into office must grow into a tidal wave, i.e. a wave Osei wants to surf into his next job. Then again, many DSAers despise the left-centrist Hakeem Jeffries, who only endorsed Mamdani shortly before Election Day and is backing multiple moderate Democrats in order to win a House majority next year. We'd be happy to see the DSA fall into internal warfare as various factions battle over prioritizing the fight to capture retiring Representative Jerry Nadler's seat or to oust insufficiently anti-Israel Representative Dan Goldman, or maybe take out Queens Democratic boss Representative Greg Meeks. It's amusing to watch one-time firebrand AOC play the responsible stateswoman and to track Mamdani's attempts to pragmatically work the halls of Albany to win his tax hikes and any other loose cash that can fund his $10 billion first-year plans.
Mr. President,
Democrat leaders recognized.
Earlier today, Donald Trump shared a post on Truth Social calling for Democratic members of Congress to be hanged. He also posted a message that said, seditious behavior, punishable by death. Let's be crystal clear. The President of the United States is calling for the execution of elected officials. This is an outright threat, and it's deadly serious. We have already seen what happens when Donald Trump tells his followers that his political opponents are enemies of the state. Every time Donald Trump posts things like this, he makes political violence more likely. None of us should tolerate this kind of behavior.
You know what, Chuck Schumer, I am in total agreement with you. So my question is, why didn't you condemn the rhetoric from Jay Jones, who verbatim called for the political assassination of his political opponent? You know, these are like high school games, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the post right in front of you of what the president is posting here. It's in response to the law that clearly states what Congress was just doing. Certain members of Congress calling for U.S. military to defy the commander-in-chief's orders. That is seditious behavior. In some way, shape, or form, it could be considered treason, which is punishable by death. Now, I wouldn't be calling for the death. I don't think he is calling for the death. I don't think that's what that means. I think he's quoting what the law says.
We all remember what January 6th was like. We lived through January 6th. We have lived through the assassination and attempted assassinations this year. We have members whose families have had to flee their homes. When Donald Trump uses the language of execution and treason, some of his supporters may very well listen. He is lighting a match in a country soaked with political gasoline. And yet today, he crossed yet another line that no democracy can afford to tolerate. He must be condemned forcefully, loudly, and without excuses before someone takes his words as permission to do the unthinkable. Anything less enables the flames of hatred to grow and spread.
Okay, so I don't have to remind you that everything Chuck Schumer just said is exactly what Democrats have been doing for over a decade now. Okay, we know that individuals on the right have actually suffered more political violence at the hands of radical left lunatics in this country. There's no question about it. We know there's an uprising in violence with Antifa and LGBTQ community, particularly transgenders. So let's not get caught up in this distraction from Chucky, okay? He's got real problems on his hand. Before I show you that, read this from Jamie Raskin. The president of the United States just called for the Democratic lawmakers to be killed. Trump is putting my colleagues' lives at risk because they have exercised their free speech rights under the First Amendment and speech and debate clause. Okay. Well, as I just stated, Chuck Schumer's got bigger problems than this. Take a look.
But Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are on different planets. You know, you look at January, the net favorability rating, they were pretty close, plus 22 for Jeffries, plus 11 for Schumer. But over the course of the year, Jeffries' net favorability among Democrats has actually gone up. It's gone up to plus 29 points. Look at where Chuck Schumer is. He's underwater with Democrats in the most recent Fox News poll at minus 2 points. But at this point, Hakeem Jeffries is running over 30 points better with Democrats nationally than Chuck Schumer is. The anger on the left is much more so against Chuck Schumer than it is against Hakeem Jeffries.
Now you guys see what I meant when I said that Chuck Schumer has bigger problems on his hands besides what the president is truthing on Truth Social, okay? The downfall of the Democrat Party could be summed up in their reactions. They just have to react. They're like a dog with a bone. They can't help it. This is what they know to do. They don't know how to serve their constituents. They only know how to react to the president. Now, he also went on to say things like this. This is really bad and dangerous to our country. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. Seditious behavior from traitors. Locked them up. Question mark. And he was just basically posting what the Washington Examiner had put out, which is about the video. And then if you scroll down, you'll see him retruthing what other people were posted. Get these people out of office. They aren't doing their jobs. Insurrection, treason, sedition. Indict all of them. Unlawful is the key word, folks. And the final one, which got everybody's attention, hang them. George Washington would. And another person put traitors. Now, let's go to Speaker Mike Johnson. Here's what he had to say.
Speaker, how you doing? The president posted that Democrats who urge service members to not follow illegal orders should be punished, it should be seditious, conspiracy.
I'm not sure why it locked up on there. Hello. Let me move it forward here.
Being punishable by death. Give me a
There we
response.
go.
Look,
Sorry.
I know the DOJ and the Pentagon are looking into the legality of all that, but what I can address is what everybody knows. That was wildly inappropriate. It is very dangerous. You have leading members of Congress telling troops to disobey orders. I think that's unprecedented in American history. And as the father of a young man who is, at the Naval Academy, going to be joining the service, I know young soldiers, airmen, sailors, they don't need that kind of nonsense from people in Congress. It is very dangerous. At a very dangerous time. I'm going to let others define what it is, but it's wildly inappropriate. Called leaders in Congress to do to encourage young troops to disobey orders. I mean, think of what the threat that is to our national security and what it means to our institutions. We have got to raise the bar in Congress. This is out of control and is wildly inappropriate. And for a senator like Mark Kelly or any member of Congress in the House or Senate to be engaged in that kind of talk is to me just so beyond the pale.
All right, let's just take a moment here. As you guys probably know, if you've been following me for quite some time, I love to live a healthy lifestyle. I love to eat healthy foods, but I do have a sweet tooth, which is why today's video is brought to you by goldbelly.com.
Okay, I better go ahead and pass
and
this
if you're
back
belly members of the military, I don't care what branch you're in, we don't want to see videos from members of Congress. They despise politics in the military. They sign up not to hear from Congress, not even to hear from the president. The only person they want to hear from is the man, the woman next to them, accomplishing the mission every day and going home to their families. That's all they care about. This is a distraction overall. The members of Congress should have never posted that video, okay? Should have never directed that message at the members of the military. Should have never happened. And now we are where we are, caught up in this whole dramatic situation. Now, the bottom line so far is this. Jason Crow is back on mainstream media, doubling down on the same message and refused to clarify What lawful order did the president issue? What unlawful order has the president issued that military members should defy? Take a look.
You're a former paratrooper, Army Ranger. You know better than most how crucial the chain of command is. You say you can refuse illegal orders. You must refuse illegal orders. What exactly are you telling the soldiers to do? Stand up and say no or quit?
There are example after example in U.S. military history of people that are asked to do things that are unlawful, usually almost always involving committing violence or crimes against civilians that uniformed personnel are obligated to refuse if that's what they're ordered to do. And we're concerned about this, Elizabeth. We're concerned about this because of the rhetoric of this president, right? The president actually said, hey, can you shoot these people in the leg during the Lafayette Square protests?
But that wasn't an order.
I think
that was a question, right?
And this president has a long history of saying nefarious and dubious things, right? But you don't ever wait until an order is actually given to train people and tell them what their obligations are.
So to be clear,
right,
but to be clear, Congressman, you're not saying President Trump has already given any illegal orders, are you?
We're not talking about specific orders.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. That right there is a repeated behavioral pattern from Congress. Okay.
You cannot get a politician to answer a straight question. You can't. You just can't. You're just wasting your breath trying to ask them a straight question because you're not going to get the answer.
Okay. I mean, I can't find a better example than that. They will spend all this energy, all this time, all this posted on social media. Some networks are going to eat it up, only to find out in the end that it's not actually rooted in any action from the president. It's just rhetoric at the end of the day. And that's why I continue to say that Congress is really a political theater and also a reality TV show that, refuses to serve the interests of the American people. And we said it earlier on the live show that they should just wipe the entire Congress out and start fresh. I would take Senator John Kennedy. I would take Representative Tim Burchett. Some people said Ron Johnson, throw him in there. The rest of them, they got to go because this is just getting out of hand at this point. They're wasting American taxpayer dollars and they're wasting America's time. Now, let's go to Caroline Leavitt, because here's what she had to say during her White House press briefing today. Take a look.
Be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. That could inspire chaos and it could incite violence and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These three members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin. She's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the U.S. Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer. And notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
So bottom line is what? If we look at this subjectively, most people are not going to agree with what the president is always posting on Truth Social. That's just reality. In the same breath, these same people understand who he is, that he's going to say exactly what's on his mind. Okay? That's the bottom line to it. Now, he has not called for the murder, the killing, or the hanging of members of Congress. You're not going to find that. Okay? Other people have, no question about it. Secondly, members of Congress who were involved in this video were clearly pushing propaganda to the members of the military, and that in and of itself should be called out. And number three, ladies and gentlemen, this story is another distraction from the things that matter. And of course, we have an example of that, which leads us to our next story. A woman on the subway in Chicago was doused with gasoline and set on fire. Take a look.
Welcome back. A horrifying crime in Chicago to tell you about. A man with a long, violent criminal history is facing a federal terrorism charge after police say he went up to a 26-year-old woman who was riding the train in the city. He doused her with gasoline and then lit her on fire. The woman is still in the ICU right now. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Jillian Turner Griffiths. Great to be with you. This is a horror show.
It's great to be with you.
It's hard to even talk about it.
It's hard to talk about this because it's so bad. Dana and Bill are off today. We're tackling it because the terrifying train attack sparking outrage over the growing danger on Chicago mass transit. Flames engulfing the woman's body, leaving her in critical condition with severe burns.
So his name is Lawrence Reed. He's facing terrorism charges. He set a 26-year-old woman on fire on the Chicago subway train. He also said the words "burn alive, B." Reed has been arrested 49 times, 10 of them being felonies, and yet judges keep putting him back on the streets. Are we paying attention? I don't think the biggest threat necessarily is outside this country. The biggest threat is internally. We can't even police our own people. Someone who's been arrested 49 times, I don't even care what the crime is. I don't think that person should be back on the streets. They failed to protect the public. They failed that young woman. This tragedy was preventable, and the judges to enable it need to be held accountable. Just maybe there should be a new piece of legislation that addresses this. If a judge is caught releasing someone back onto the street who's been arrested even more than 10 times, they should lose their license.
Despite a long rap sheet, some of the incidents reportedly going back all the way to the early 90s. This guy was back out on the street. Federal officials saying he could ultimately face life in prison now.
Lawrence Reed had no business being on the streets given his violent criminal history and his pending criminal cases. Reed had plenty of second chances by the criminal justice system, and as a result, you have an innocent victim in the hospital fighting for her life. Because of the swift action of CPD, ATF, and our law enforcement partners, there will be no other chances for Mr. Reed.
Now, let's just address the debate at hand. The debate that we're having is about policing in America. We know progressives do not believe in the police. In fact, they believe in defunding the police. They believe they should have counselors respond to crimes. But let's just address this at its very core. For the parents out there, when your son and your daughter, who's 8 years old, 4 years old, 12 years old, refuses to follow your orders, you have one or two choices. You can enable the behavior by not holding them accountable, or you can hold them accountable, which gives them a great chance at following your orders in the future. Which one do you believe is going to be more effective? We know the answer to that. Okay. Now, let's see what Mayor Brandon Johnson has to say, because his take is just wild.
From this city and from this country, jails and incarceration and law enforcement is a sickness that has not led to safe communities. I'm going to work hard every single day to protect the people who are caught up in violence in this city. Guess why? You want to know why? Because the vast majority of them look like me. This president has never asked a very simple question to me. He doesn't talk to black mayors about what it's like to live in communities that have been disinvested in. So no, we're not going to succumb to the sickness and the evil that Dr. King warned us about a generation ago. It's a sickness, and we're going to eradicate it.
Okay, so I apologize. That clip was actually about how Mayor Brandon Johnson feels about policing. Now let me show you the clip where he is directly reacting to this man setting a citizen, a resident of Chicago, on fire on his subway. He says he cares about keeping his people safe, but he has a funny way of figuring out how to do that exactly, because he continues to blame the president of the United States. No surprise. Take a listen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I know you addressed the blue line, but yesterday you called safety on the CTA your top priority when it comes to transportation, and you referenced those dollars we're going to be getting from Springfield. How will you specifically be changing safety measures on the CTA for riders who are moving forward?
Yeah, well, again, this is an awful, tragic incident, and safety as a whole is my top priority, not just for for public transportation. And so there are appropriations that have been dedicated specifically around safety, but even more specifically around homelessness, as well as mental health services, right? So now we have a governing structure that will allow for all voices to come together to think strategically about where those investments should rest.
So in other words,
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause it there. You would think that if he cared about the people in his city, he would say, I think we need to have a discussion with some of these judges that allow these repeat offenders back out on the street. If they're continuing to commit crimes after they've been arrested, gone through the judicial process, and the judge lets them out on the street, I think we need to have a discussion. In fact, I would encourage the media to talk to some of these judges and ask them why they think it's okay for a criminal to be let out, back out on the street so that they can commit more crimes without paying for the previous crimes they've already committed. No, the news media won't frickin' do that, and neither will a Democrat. Okay? Let me know what you think. Am I just gone berserk here or what? Okay, let me go ahead and click on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Devory Darkins. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. If you want to watch the rest of this, there's about 10 minutes more of it. The link is in the description box below. Okay. Let me jump back over here. And we have some information from Vince Dow. Let's go ahead and take a listen to this. He has some pretty good stuff.
I believe that Jeffrey Epstein had information, and I was going to get information to get at the truth. Having a real friendship with him is not something that I would deem to have.
Right.
And so I'm just looking forward. I'm moving forward. And I think that that's what we as American people should do, is move forward. If individuals are not involved in illegal activity, extending his criminal enterprise or his financial enterprise or all of those things, I think that we need to look at what people are doing moving forward.
Wait, let me just better understand that. What is that point? Because at the time he was a known sex offender and it had been detailed all the sexual abuse.
There are a lot of people who have done a lot of crimes. And as a prosecutor, you get information from people where you can.
So the House Democrats simply continue to faceplant and struggle over what has rapidly become their own Epstein scandal. And every attempt at damage control continues to fail. It's like they're throwing darts at the dartboard, and they're not just missing, right? They're not just failing to successfully attack Trump on this anymore because the receipts go against their favor. It's boomeranging and hitting them back in the face, right? And that shouldn't be surprising because after all, as we knew about for years, far from being Donald Trump's BFF like Democrats spent 2025 trying to frame Jeffrey Epstein as, it's actually the opposite. And the emails are further confirming that. Jeffrey Epstein was a typical Trump deranged liberal. He was colluding with, he was working with Democrats, donating to their campaigns for many years. And of course, what better example than Representative Stacey Plaskett, who in 2019, just months before Jeffrey Epstein, quote unquote, killed himself, by now he was already a convicted sex offender for over a decade, is not just soliciting donations, not just saying, oh, I want to have, Jeffrey Epstein at my donor fundraisers and all that, but is actively texting Epstein in the middle of congressional hearings saying, hey, how do I craft my anti-Trump talking points? So you, of course, mean to tell me, as we've been saying, right, that Jeffrey Epstein was essentially the moral authority of the Democrat Party? Yeah, turns out we knew that back then. We know it especially now. Because Democrats, as Epstein would have wanted, as he talked about in those emails, are trying to use the relationship with Epstein as a political weapon against Trump. And of course, it's doing the opposite because we know the truth. But nonetheless, guys, in today's video, I want to show you some of this damage control because they asked, for instance, Hakeem Jeffries about the Stacey Plaskett situation. And he gave like the guiltiest answer of all time. We have Stacey Plaskett herself going on CNN to try to do the damage control. And yeah, it just doesn't go well for her because she claims, oh, I had no idea. But then they're asking, wait, but Jeffrey Epstein was already a convicted sex offender. Why were you so close with him? I was just asking for information. You're doing a lot more than that, actually. You guys were having some pretty friendly conversations. And then, of course, in the full DEI fashion, they're trotting out the DEI squad to do the damage control on CNN. And we also have Representative Jasmine Crockett, who is trying to deflect from the Stacey Plaskett situation, saying, oh, look, other Republicans also got donations from Jeffrey Epstein, except it turns out this is not the same Jeffrey Epstein, right? So we'll tell you about this as well, because she is going to make herself look like an idiot. Are you noticing a pattern here? Every time Democrats try to make an attack on Epstein, now given what we know, given the emails, given the files that have been released, they're going to faceplant every single time. They do best to just shut up about this, but their hubris, their arrogance, they apparently cannot see that. So anyways, we'll get into it, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. That's not only the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And feel free to go watch our prior videos on Stacey Plaskett if you want the full recap or you're confused what's happening here. I'm not going to re-explain it other than just basically saying here you have a House Democrat who was colluding with Jeffrey Epstein to take down Donald Trump in 2019. So they asked Hakeem Jeffries about this, right? About the censure attempt. So have you spoken to Stacey Plaskett about her text with Epstein? Jeffries responds here by saying, no, I haven't. And then goes on to say, actually, I have had a private conversation. So he can't even keep his story straight. It is so ridiculously guilty. Take a listen.
Have you spoken to Stacey Plaskett after this controversy emerged?
I have not.
Can you confirm if there was a deal last night to sink the resolution against Congressman Plaskett in exchange for not bringing a censure resolution?
We've made clear repeatedly we're not going to unilaterally disarm.
So you're saying there was no deal?
I'm saying we will not unilaterally disarm. Not now, not ever.
Mr. Leader, why wouldn't you speak to Stacey Plaskett?
I said I haven't spoken to her since the censure resolution went down.
No, about this text controversy.
I have not spoken to her since the censure resolution went down.
Have you talked to her about this text controversy?
She and I have talked, and it's a private conversation that will remain private.
So wait a minute. You haven't spoke, but you have spoke, but the details are private. Yeah, that's totally not suspicious at all. Keep in mind, this is the very same House leader claiming he wants full transparency on the Epstein stuff. We want to find out everyone. We don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. Oh, wait a minute. But if it's a Democrat, we don't want transparency. That's a private conversation. We're not going to talk about it. Let's just move on. Don't ask any questions about Stacey Plaskett, because after all, mainstream media, Democrat Party, don't you know this was never about transparency, okay, or protecting or getting justice for the victims? This is a political op against Trump. So anything that mentions Democrats, actually, which is hilarious because they're accusing Trump of right now, oh, he's redacting his name. No, any conversation with Epstein that involves a Democrat, we don't care about that. That's not relevant. Okay, this is just a political attack by the Republicans. It's all about finding out of context stuff to take down Donald Trump. Of course, that's what it always has been about. Now, that said, I'm not exactly sure why Stacey Plaskett wouldn't think to just keep her stupid mouth shut, because it doesn't look good. But no, instead, she's about to go on CNN this week to, again, do the damage control, right? Try to explain herself. And newsflash, it just doesn't go well. It's a pretty brutal watch, but I do want to show you the excuses that are being made for that text conversation. So take a listen.
All right. Well, we are just learning that the Senate has now sent over that legislation on releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files over to the president's desk. We're monitoring that. Also, you have, this ongoing Epstein saga, Wolf.
And there's a lot of drama still unfolding. The Epstein saga hasn't been without controversy for Democrats as well. The House last night narrowly rejected a Republican effort to censure our next guest, Democratic delegate Stacey Plaskett, over a text she exchanged with Epstein during a 2019 congressional hearing with President Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen. 3 Republicans joined all Democrats to defeat the effort to remove her from the House Intelligence Committee, with another 3 voting present. Congressman Stacey Plaskett.
By the way, can I just point out what a disgrace this was by the Republican Party? This should be the easiest censure of all time. After all, again, we just watched for an entire year the way Democrats ruthlessly fought and ruthlessly weaponized this issue against Trump. And here you have a conversation that was undeniably inappropriate. And not just that one text exchange, but the fundraising, the close relationship. Oh, your outfit looks amazing. Thanks, And yet, we will never stop being the party of beautiful losers, will we? Oh, what about our principles? What principles? Shouldn't we actually hold people who had inappropriate relationships with Epstein accountable? No, actually, even the Republicans are going to go along with the fact it was just an anti-Trump op all along. And my understanding, by the way, is the reason some of these Republicans voted no, it's kind of like a plea deal almost, because there's a Republican representative by the name of Kory Mills that has like some sex scandal, some dirt on him as well, which is really bad. But instead of saying, okay, so, censure that person as well, no, they're going to protect their own corrupt person, which is why they're not going after Plaskett. Like, you want to talk about corruption around Epstein stuff? Like, this is it right here. It's the Republicans who will not censure the Democrat who, again, undeniably had inappropriate conversations. So just completely disgraceful. But anyways, that's besides the point. Let's take a listen to what actually happened here.
The U.S. Virgin Islands is joining us right now. You're a delegate, a non-voting delegate right now. Tell us a little bit about your reaction to all these late developments.
Well, first I want to thank the Democrats, the Democratic caucus, not only for voting with me, but for speaking on my behalf during the general debate, as well as those members in the Republican Party who voted with the Democrats and those who tacitly voted with us by either voting present or not voting at all during the censure. And I'm hopeful that we can now get back to the work that we do in Congress rather than the political theater that has been happening. The files have been released, which I have been in favor of all along. And let's let the victims get their justice and let us get to the work of Congress. We've been on over a 70-day paid time off. Democrats have been doing town halls, coming back to Congress. Republicans have been nowhere in sight. And the people of this country are in need of our support and of the work that needs to be done.
Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. You got that? So the new Democrat talking point by Stacey Plaskett is, suddenly now let's move on from Epstein. We've only been obsessed with Epstein for an entire year, but now that issue is being turned against us, let's move on. The American people don't care about this. Okay, really? Really? And then, of course, the government shut down after, let's not forget that the Democrats shut down the government. But apparently we also want to move on from that. We need to do the important work of Congress. Oh, really? The work that Democrats have been obstructing? So ridiculous. Okay.
Epstein had property in the Virgin Islands, right?
Yes.
What was your relationship with Epstein?
So Jeffrey Epstein was a constituent. He was a resident of the Virgin Islands, lived there, I guess, more than half of the year because he was registered there. I had received donations from him after the last investigation came out, which was after this texting. I gave any donations that I had previously received from him to women's organizations and did not have any contact with him. But like many constituents, individuals get your phone number, they text you about issues, they speak with you. I have spoken with him about issues that are relevant, things that are going on in the Virgin Islands and elsewhere around the country.
Right, but on that day that we're talking about, you initiated the text exchange at 7:55 in the morning. So why were you even texting with Epstein at the time? He was a known sex offender then.
Sure. I explained to people, I've been a prosecutor for many years. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people who have information that are not your friends, that you use to get information to get at the truth. This was 7 years ago, and people need to understand this was a huge hearing that was taking place with Michael Cohen finally coming forward to talk about monies that he had with the hush money, potential hush money that had been paid to Stormy Daniels to keep her quiet about the allegations against Trump.
Okay, even if that's true, which it's really not, because you look at even that conversation, it seems like you guys know each other a little more personally than that, right? Epstein's like flirting with you, complimenting your outfit, all these things. Okay, but fine, whatever. That might kind of explain that one interaction. But what about the others? Why was Jeffrey Epstein donating to your campaign in 2018? Why did you have emails in some of those releases soliciting his donation, right? Saying, I'd appreciate it if you could bring Jeffrey Epstein to my New York fundraiser. That's in 2017, 2018? We went over those emails as well. So by then, the guy already was a convicted sex offender. What happened to feminism? What happened to Me Too? Apparently, that's not a thing if it's the billionaire elites who are donating to your party. And that's a point I want to bring up about this as well, because the mainstream Democrat narrative of this for a long time is that they've been trying to turn the old MAGA point against Trump and say, oh, there's this billionaire class of people who are not accountable for their actions. And there's these pedophiles who are, running the country, the oligarchs, right? And the Democrats are the party of the ordinary man who's fighting back against people like Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And yet suddenly when it's revealed, no, Jeffrey Epstein was not on Trump's side, he was on your side. It's just oh yeah, we took money from him. He was funding us. But no, it's Donald Trump, don't you know? Right? Notice how that part of the conversation's not getting addressed. Why was Jeffrey Epstein such a big fan of anti-Trump politicians and Democrats, right?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. And, it's the same old thing. All the Democrats care about is their power and as much money as they can get their hands on. Pretty amazing. Okay, before we move on here, I do want to share some information here about 1775 coffee. Some pretty good stuff from what I understand.
Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped, only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the Vitality Mushroom Coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash.
All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler.
$170 worth of coffee and gear. Yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is.
Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does.
Okay, I've copied the live chat into a comment because I like to keep the live chats part of this video. And when the live stream is over, the live chats just kind of evaporate into hyperspace. So let me go ahead and make that comment. Oh, very nice, very nice. And let me remind you folks that these videos that I shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer's channel. If you'd like to see more of them, the links are right here in the description box. Right here, these are the videos and these are the links. Now, this information comes from information that I post on Murtech.com. These 4 videos I've posted on Murtech.com, where I have over 55 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Right here's the information, the video from Devory Darkins. Up here's the video from ACLJ Sekulow. Right down here's the video from Vince Dow that I shared with you. Okay, so I'd like to share all of this with you, all 55 videos, but I don't have time to do that. I do have my daily news wrap-up coming up here about 9:30. Let me give you a preview of some Wendy Bell that I'm going to share with you.
Ho, 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 it's magic.
You know what's magic is how nobody in Canada looks like they are in Canada anymore. Where are you? Are you in India? Are you in China? Are you in Guatemala? I don't know. Big melting pot going on to our north, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Wendy Bell radio program. Look, I believe that there are wonderful migrants in our communities right now. And I believe a lot of these people came over and they followed the rules, and it's an arduous task, and it's expensive, and it takes time, and it's a process, but it's that way for a reason. It's not free admission just cause a couple guys with, collars tell you so. And all you need to do to see the effects of migration, rampant, unfettered, unabated migration, is to look at Canada. Guess how many babies are born to foreign mothers now in Canada? It's Outrageous. 42.3% of babies born in Canada are babies born to foreign-born mothers. It ain't just Canada. Who is the best friend of Canada now all of a sudden? The UK. They've got the same foreign-born birth rate. It's almost like right before your very eyes. Poof. Great replacement. It's hard to believe, but it appears to be correct. Last year, 42.3% of babies born in Canada were born to a foreign-born mother. As in Europe and the UK and the US, globalists are successfully replacing us. That's the theme today, guys. The goal is, one, to drain you dry, get all your cash, of course, because they need that, and then basically to render you irrelevant, kick you to the curb, and replace you with somebody else who's probably a lot cheaper than you are to do what you do. 42.3%. Up from 22.5% in 1997. There's a gentleman in Canada. He is a podcaster. He's an influencer. His name is Max Genist. And he had his podcast, and he was like, do you guys see what's going on here? Look at the birth rates in the foreign births in Canada. It is, without equivocation, the great replacement before your very eyes.
Statistics Canada just dropped the numbers that proves the great replacement theory is not a theory. In 1997, only 1 in 5 babies had a foreign-born mother. Fast forward to 2024, over 40%. That is not immigration. That is replacement. That is white genocide. Deliberate, government-sanctioned white genocide. Without these foreign births, the total number of births in Canada would have collapsed since 2010. The numbers do not lie. The only thing keeping the population afloat is a systemic importation of people who did not build this country, who did not bleed for this country, who did not bury their sons under this flag. They are replacing us. They are erasing us. They are genociding the very people who made Canada what it is.
So now he's going to dig into this whole idea that I nibbled on in the monologue, this whole idea of some kind of shame. And I think this is where your exceedingly triggered reaction by the liberal woman in particular comes into play. It's like she's been groomed to believe if she's white, she's got some advantage, unfair advantage. And she, I guess, picks up that guilt ball that a lot of others can walk by. But the liberal, particularly white woman, grabs it, makes it her destiny, and does everything she can to prove, I'm not privileged, I'm not advantaged, I'm not supreme. And this whole mindset of crazy town starts to take root. And this is what's happened in Canada. Listen.
And it's not just happening in the maternity wards, it's happening in our culture. Our birth rates are stagnant, white birth rates, because the culture has turned against us. We're told abortion is birth control. We're told women should not settle down, shouldn't start families, shouldn't need a man, be independent, live alone, chase the career, die childless. That's the message drilled into our heads from every screen, every classroom, every billboard. This is destruction. This is propaganda designed to destroy us. And the worst part, it's working only on us. Have you noticed that? This poison does not work on anyone else. Brown people, black people, immigrant communities, they're not buying the lie. They're having families, they're building communities, they're growing. While we're told to shrink, to apologize, to disappear, we are the only ones being told our culture is toxic, our history is shameful, our future is optional. We're the only ones being replaced in our own homeland.
100%. 100%. Do you see how it's all connected? We talked about that earlier in the week. All of these stories that are popping up that seem kind of disconnected, they're all connected. They're all in the same solar system. They just haven't all hit the same orbit. Did you know that in the UK, approximately 40.4% of babies born last year had a foreign-born parent? Had at least one foreign-born parent. This is an epidemic. You are being replaced. And the indoctrination in colleges, it's got to be college. It's got to be education. It's got to be where they get their talons into the soft, squishy flesh of the impressionable young mind, and then beat like a drum the message. Shame on you. Shame on you. You're white. You need to give back. And they've created a generation of clone troopers that is now out there activated. The homing chips are lit up. And these people are out there doing crazy things, assassinating men who simply want to talk, firing at ICE agents with bullets that they've scribbled messages into. Oh, we have a crisis, all right, in this country. Just maybe not the one we all think. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program.
Okay, there you have it. There's your little preview. Let me jump over here. This is my playlist for my daily news wrap-up. Wendy Bell. I've got some information from Dark in Exile. Glenn Beck. Some more Vince Dow. Black Conservative Perspective. Liberty Sentinel. This is probably going to be a pretty good one here. Alex Newman and Alex Jones. Great. Two of the greats. Also from Benny Johnson. Got a lot. Anthony Brian Logan. A lot of good stuff here, folks. So go ahead and take a break. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut, or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer, and meet me back here at 9:30. I'm going to go through and make sure my playlist's all set up correctly and get into set up my Rumble studio for the live stream. So meet me back here at 9:30. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for your time. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.